This little one you see, little Trooper was moments from death, abandoned in an unusual Ohio cold snap. I'm
I
Ellie
still
Jensen,
remember
a
the
retired
exact
nurse,
moment everything
and what happened
changed.
next turned into the rescue of my lifetime. It was late November, and the air had teeth. An unseasonably harsh cold front had ripped through our quiet corner of Ohio. I was out near the state park entrance, not far from home, checking on a forgotten old storage barn that always seemed to attract trouble. I heard the faintest sound, a whimpering, barely audible above the wind whistling through the rusted corrugated tin. And then I saw her. She was curled up, a tiny ball of brown fur, wedged under the decaying porch of that barn. Her small body was soaked, and the ground beneath her was frozen solid. The sight of her broke my heart right there. I reached for her, and the cold that radiated from her small frame shocked me to my core. I truly had never in all my 65 years touched a living creature so cold. She felt like an ice cube. I scooped her up. Good Lord, she was shivering. Not just little shakes, but full-body convulsions. Little Trooper, that's what I named her right then and there. I whispered to her, "I'm going to heat you up, baby. You're safe now. You are coming home with Grandma Ellie." I raced home. I didn't waste a second. As a retired nurse, my instincts kicked in. We bypassed the kitchen and went straight for the living room. I wrapped her in a special heated blanket I usually save for my aching back and laid her by our stone fireplace. That crackling fire, the scent of wood smoke, felt like the only hope in the world. I held her against my chest, sharing my own warmth, praying her little heart wouldn't give out. It took what felt like an eternity, but the frantic shivering began to slow. Finally, I got her to Dr. Peterson at the community vet clinic, a man I've trusted for decades. He examined her, shaking his head, and then he delivered the chilling truth, his voice low and serious. "Ellie, I'm not exaggerating. A couple more hours out there, and she would have been gone. Hypothermia would have claimed her. You saved her in the nick of time." The relief was overwhelming, but the realization of how close she came, that hit me hard. I wept in the clinic lobby, but the relief was fleeting, because once we saved the baby, the next question hit me like a ton of bricks. Where was her mother? Stay tuned, because the search for hope was just beginning. Little Trooper was stable, but something felt wrong, unfinished. A baby that tiny, that far from help, didn't travel alone. I couldn't rest. I knew I had to go back to that cold, dark barn. I returned the next day, armed with a better flashlight and a sinking heart. The wind was still fierce. I scoured the area. I needed a sign. I needed to know the mother hadn't been lost too. And then I found tracks in the fresh frost near the woods. They weren't dog tracks. They were large, unmistakable paw prints. Coyote. Good Lord. The wildlife here can be fierce, especially when scavenging in the cold. I realized that if the mother was nearby, she wasn't just battling the cold, she was dodging predators. The urgency suddenly skyrocketed. Finding the mother was no longer just about sentiment. It was a race against the cold and a race against nature. I was about to give up when I heard the familiar rumble of an engine. Gary, our trusted local mail carrier, pulled up, delivering the daily mail even in this miserable weather. I waved him down. He's seen everything that happens in this neighborhood. "Gary, have you seen a larger stray dog around this old barn? Maybe a retriever mix?" I asked, my voice tight. Gary tipped his hat. "Matter of fact, Mrs. Jensen, I have. A beautiful big brown female. Been lurking near that tree line for 3 days now. She looks distressed, like she's searching for something." Then Gary leaned in and gave me the most important piece of information. Funny thing is, the other day she was carrying something in her mouth, a tattered piece of blanket or something. I've never seen a stray be so protective of, well, trash. That's it, a sign of life. That piece of blanket was probably the only comfort the mother Hope had left of her puppy. She wasn't an aggressive stray. She was a mother in mourning and in search. The overwhelming doubt that I would find her vanished. Hope was out there, alive and looking. But Gary added one more gut-wrenching detail. I almost forgot to mention, with all the stray dog reports lately, I know the county animal control truck was circling this road yesterday. They'll pick her up, Ellie. She's too big to ignore. Now I had two threats, the cold and the risk of the system separating them permanently. I had to find Hope before the truck did. The clock was ticking. Finding the mother was a miracle, but catching her was going to be the toughest challenge yet. Could I, a retired grandma, catch a frightened, protective mother dog before animal control stepped in? Don't go anywhere, because the next moments were pure tension. I drove back the next morning, but this time I wasn't leaving until I had her. I brought a warm crate, an irresistible can of wet food, and an old dog toy from my own golden retriever. I waited patiently, hidden behind my parked car, near the tree line. Hours passed, and then I saw her, Hope. Gary was right. She was magnificent, a beautiful, strong retriever mix, but her eyes looked haunted and desperate. She was cautious, staying low, moving like a ghost. She smelled the food immediately. Her tail gave a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch. She wanted it, but her motherly instinct to survive and protect herself was too strong. She edged closer, one hesitant step after another. I spoke softly, my voice calm, the kind of voice I used to use in the hospital when calming an anxious patient. It's okay, Mama. I have your baby. I have little Trooper. I'm here to help you. I repeated those words for nearly an hour. The words felt like a lifeline, more for me than for her. Finally, she broke. The cold, the hunger, the desperation, it was too much. She took a couple of quick bites, her ears still flicking, listening for every sound. That was my chance. I had a rope snare, a gentle catch pole that Dr. Peterson had loaned me. When she was focused on the food, I moved. Fast, but not aggressive. She bolted immediately. She was fast. Too fast. I missed the first attempt entirely. She retreated 50 yards into the woods. My heart sank. I thought I had lost her. I really did. I sat back down, tears of frustration freezing on my cheeks. I just whispered little Trooper's name, holding the puppy's small blanket out toward the woods. Then the miracle happened. She didn't run further away. She stopped and looked at the blanket. She had recognized the scent, that tiny frayed piece of cloth that Gary the mail carrier had mentioned. It was her connection to her baby. I didn't move. I waited another 30 minutes. She started slowly, hesitantly, coming back out of the shadows. This time when she got close, she avoided the food. She only smelled the blanket. She approached me cautiously, her gaze locked on the blanket in my hand. I didn't use the pole. I simply opened the back of my warm SUV, where the large crate sat, lined with more blankets. I tossed the puppy's blanket into the crate. I spoke gently. "Go on, Mama. Go to your baby. I'm just trying to keep you warm." She stood there debating her life, safety versus the terrifying unknown. Then the cold won. The desperation won. She made the choice. She darted into the crate, curled up on the small blanket, and let out a tired sigh. I quietly shut the door. We did it. Hope was safe, but the journey wasn't over. As I secured the crate, I saw the distinctive white truck turn onto the main road in the distance. Animal control. They were less than a minute away. If I had been 5 minutes later, Hope would have been captured, labeled a stray, and put through the stressful shelter system. I had saved her, and saved her from a painful separation from her baby. I drove straight to the clinic, my hands shaking. I called Dr. Peterson on the way. "I have her, Doc. Her name is Hope. Prepare for a reunion." We had the baby and the mother, but they hadn't seen each other in days. Would the mother recognize the cold, shrunken puppy? Or would the trauma be too great? This is the moment we were all waiting for. The clinic staff were all gathered. They were rooting for us. Hope was scared, but calm. Little Trooper was small and weak, but her tail gave the tiniest wag when she heard the other dogs. Dr. Peterson placed a soft, clean towel on the floor of an exam room. We brought Hope in first. She immediately retreated to a corner, wary of the strange environment. Then I brought in little Trooper, nestled in my arms. The moment Hope saw her, everything changed. It was immediate, it was primal. Hope didn't need a DNA test or a second look. Her wary posture instantly dissolved. She let out a soft, low whine, a sound of pure recognition and relief. She moved straight to the tiny bundle of fur. Little Trooper, who had been quiet and lethargic, lifted her small head and let out a weak, happy squeak, a sound I hadn't heard before. Hope began to gently lick her baby, not frantically, but with deep, soothing strokes. Little Trooper snuggled in immediately, seeking the warmth and the undeniable scent of her mother. Every single person in that room was crying. Every one of us. It was more than a successful rescue. It was the sacred, unbreakable bond of motherhood, overcoming the darkest cold and the threat of death. Hope had found her purpose, and Little Trooper had found her life. Dr. Peterson, usually so stoic, cleared his throat and quietly handed me a tissue. He said, "Mrs. Jensen, that is why we do what we do. Look at that. That's a healing that no medicine can touch." But as the initial joy subsided, the reality of the situation came back. Hope needed vaccinations, medical checks, and good food. Little Trooper still had a long way to go, and I knew my retirement budget couldn't cover the full cost of 2 dogs needing long-term care. The future, while warmer, was still uncertain. Hope and Little Trooper were safe, but they still needed a miracle, a forever home that would take both of them. And that's when my community stepped up in a way I never expected. The final climax is the greatest victory of all. I posted a small plea on our local community Facebook group, telling the story of Hope and Little Trooper and asking for help with the mounting medical bills. I mentioned they needed to stay together and find a retirement home, a calm, loving place for a mother and her baby to spend their lives. What happened next was breathtaking. Donations poured in, small checks from fixed-income seniors, 5 bills from kids who read the story, and dozens of bags of dog food dropped off at my porch. My neighbors, my friends, my community, they covered every single bill. Gary, the mail carrier, even came by with a $50 gift card for the pet store saying, "They're family now, Ellie." This was the power of American goodness, the power of a community that cares. But the final piece of the puzzle, the greatest reward, came a week later. A couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, they're in their late 70s, live on a beautiful acreage just outside of town. They came to meet Hope and Little Trooper. They had recently lost their old golden retriever. They were looking for something to fill that empty space. They spent hours with the mother and daughter. They saw Little Trooper, now strong and frisky, a little rascal indeed, tugging on Hope's ear. They saw the bond. They didn't hesitate. Mr. Hayes looked at me, his eyes moist, and said, "Ellie, we can't just adopt a puppy. We need to adopt a family. They're coming home with us." Saying goodbye was hard, but watching them drive away, Hope riding shotgun, calm and trusting, and Little Trooper safe in the back, truly safe for the first time in her life, was the most beautiful sight. It was a perfect double happy ending. They got their forever home, together. This wasn't just my rescue, it was our rescue. It was a story about how even in the coldest weather, the human heart, motivated by kindness, can be the warmest place on earth. It's about how Hope, the mother, got her hope back, and how Little Trooper got her life. If this story touched your heart, and I truly hope it did, remember that there are thousands of Little Troopers and Hopes out there waiting for a second chance. Give your own dog an extra hug today. And hey, if you loved hearing this story and you want to see more heartwarming rescues and moments of community kindness, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments below. What would you have named Little Trooper?